Assalamu alaikum. Hi, everyone. I hope you're doing well. This is the Flow State podcast, first episode with my longtime friend Roberto Pastuch, BJJ Black Belt. I hope you enjoyed. Have a good time. Hey, Roberto. How are you? Good to see you, brother. Long time.
To see you a long, long time. Now, finally, we can
True.
do this. I'm super excited about it.
Yes, that is true. You're my first guest here on this podcast. So it's amazing to speak to you. Very looking forward to this. How are you, brother?
Good, good. Thanks, God. Everything is good. A lot of things going on, a lot of work, a lot of training, a lot of, plans, for the future. So I'm excited to tell you about it.
Yes, we really want to hear about this. So that's good to know. Yeah, I have beautiful pictures there in the background. That's you and your son, and I assume that's your sensei on the other picture.
Sensei Masafumi Sakanashi was my first sensei, was the one who really, brought me all these ideas of martial art. As you can see, he was Japanese. He was born in Japan and moved to Argentina when he was very little, 1 year old, I think. And I learned like everything from here. What you know from me on the mats is actually a straight copy from him.
That's all from him. Yeah,
Yes, all from him. Yes,
that's
yes. So
amazing.
I was very lucky to came across his life because he was like a one very special person. One in a million, I would say. And never met. He passed away now a few years ago,
Okay, I'm
but I
sorry
never
for that.
met anyone like him. So he's been my role model. And I want to be the same role model for my son. So
I'm sure you're doing a good job there for sure. Yeah, that's amazing. When you say your sensei, Roberto, I mean, you did a few things, right? I
yes.
know that you did karate. I know you did aikido. I know you do jujitsu your entire life, right? So when you say your sensei, what was he teaching you?
Well, like my first like, attempt to train was when I was 5 years old. The story was I already, love to see martial art movies and stuff. So I was like, it was probably the only moment that I could stay still, watching TV, these
Mm.
old, like a Jack Chan movies and the old ones, like back in the days. And my mom realized that I was, like super like focused into this, and I was so little, so little that my mom was giving me a bath. I didn't know how to, take a bath for myself, So I remember looking at her and getting very serious and saying, "Hey, mom, I want to train martial arts." And she looked at me and immediately laughed, because she never saw me so serious about it. So and then she realized that I was serious, So she talked to my dad, and they both agreed to bring me to this place that they used to teach karate, and they teach kyokushin, and they teach also taekwondo. It was a woman from Korea that she was teaching a very good taekwondo, and
Mm.
I went there with them, and I was 5, so I was too little, And they tell me like, well, look, we don't have a group for you, but you can wait at least 1 or 2 years, and then you can come back, So
Okay.
I was like completely disappointed, because I thought, okay, this is the thing, So my mom always like was super nice, So she figured out a way to do some sort of like custom gi, like some sort of ninja stuff. And I
Oh,
started to train
nice.
myself in my backyard, like picking and punching and jumping on the
Amazing.
tree. Yeah. So, but after 2 years, like my mom took me back there. And that was the beginning of the training. I started to train martial arts like properly, and I start with karate. But I also compete in some taekwondo tournaments. I started when I was 7. I started to compete when I was 8. So
Okay.
it was amazing, a great experience that I remember until today, like it was yesterday. So it was very good. It gave me a lot of direction. I was a kid with a lot of energy and I couldn't stay still. So after I started to train martial art, I could channel that energy. And now everything in life has started to get better. I start to get more focused on the school. I start to, like do the things that they ask me to do at home, like, helping mom and clean and this and that because I wanted to go to the training, So it was a life changing experience. So, but then years later, was some story that's a little bit sad, right? But it's gonna get you into why how I met my sensei later.
Mm.
One of these coaches that he was teaching there, he was probably around like 25 years old or something. And imagine at that time, it's like it was not so many people doing martial art. So I remember going to his training, and he was my idol. And Argentina in some places, especially where I live, it was kind of like dangerous places. And he was driving this bike, like this some sort of like a Harley Davidson style of bike.
Okay.
And he stopped in a light, and they tried to steal his bike. So he reacts to that, and he gets shot and killed. So, then one day my mom told me, "Hey, you're not gonna go to train." And I said, like, why? This is makes no sense. I love to go
Mm.
to train.
Yeah.
So what happened later, a few weeks later, I go there to play football because in Argentina, if you don't play football and eat meat, you're not Argentine.
Something wrong. Yeah.
Something wrong with you. So I went there, and it was like a club. So it's a lot of people, like older people, that they hold the club and they have other activities, and they were like playing cards or something. And they were talking about my teacher at that time, and how he got shot and killed, and I was like, what the hell happened, and they told me. So for I think at least 2 years, I was completely devastated, like I couldn't understand what was going on. And all my friends, they moved to other places to train. And I have especially one good friend, Rodrigo, that he was training a lot. He started to do kung fu because he couldn't find another place from Kyokushin. And well, like I stopped training, and every time some of my friends tell me like, yeah, martial art and this is so cool, I say, yeah, for what? Like somebody can shoot you and you can do nothing.
Mm, mm.
So imagine I was a teenage, like getting into my 12, 13 years old, and until 14 I didn't discover martial art again. But it was some sort of emptiness in me, because I knew that's what I wanted to do, but I was like a feeling so sad about it that I couldn't deal with those emotions.
Oh, yeah.
And I have the luck to go to this place, and I met my sensei for the first time. And first I met one of his students. He was teaching a class, and it was just unbelievable. And with sensei was 6th-degree black belt in Aikido. He was 2nd-degree black belt in Kyokushin and 1st-degree in Judo, training in Japan. If you know what it means to train Judo in Kodokan,
Mm.
it's like the mecca of martial arts. So he went there when he studied. He made his university there, and they came back to Argentina to spread the arts. So, and he was focused more in Aikido at the time that I met him, because he has some few physical problems, one problem on his back and on his knee. And at the age of 19, I think, he has a heart attack. So they
Okay.
recommend that he could not do any like heavy martial art or heavy liftings and stuff like he used to do in Kyokushin. He
Mm-hmm.
was training Kyokushin by Masoyama, the guy who created Kyokushin, Osama.
Oh.
Like, so he was extremely experienced, and he can do it all. And for me, the chance to train with him was Aikido. And he was such an amazing person that I decided, well, look, if if this is the art, that I need to train, like to get close to him, and I will do it. I didn't know what it was at that time.
It was about the person. It was about him. It was less about the art itself.
Yes, I think Aikido is a beautiful art. Like we don't understand like how in Japan they understand Aikido, and we just see, like these bullshit of videos, about like if some people, random people like try to invent certain things. But Aikido is
Mm.
a very interesting art. I don't know if you know about Kyudo or Yaido. Yaido is a
Judo is the archery, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there is something very particular on that one. That is, the target is just 2 meters away from you. So for us, European and like South American mentality, we cannot understand. What do you mean? You throw an arrow, just 2 meters away from you. Why are you doing this?
Mm-hmm.
They're not focused on hitting the target alone. They just focus on their self. They're focused on their and the self-awareness, and the mindfulness that is required to do a perfect execution of the technique. like a tea ceremony or like yaido, like when you the art is just about open up, the katana and make one thrust and then put it back. So these things are like deeply in the Japanese culture, deeply in the mentality, that is a little bit sometimes difficult for us to understand. Aikido is a beautiful art. It comes from jiu-jitsu, it's a style of bujutsu. So it's art of war. Um, so what O-sensei did was create, like, after World War II, he wants to bring an art that it doesn't separate people but unify people. So
Okay.
what he did with this is like try to create harmony and empathy with the others. So it was just one blend of this style of jiu-jitsu that the samurais used to use, and that it was in this direction. And I still love it, and I think it's a great art for many people. I think it has a lot of good and a lot of bad things. The bad thing is when it came, when the art spread, to America and South America, people that didn't understood what it means, so they start to try to fight with Aikido, and that's not the
Okay.
idea. The idea is to create harmony with other people, to become a better
Mm,
human being.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I think for me that was very, very important, because it helped me to understand, the philosophy behind the martial arts, and then later I started to train jiu-jitsu when I was even training with my sensei, because I was looking for something more, like explosive, something more like fighting thing. And I was at that age, so like you have a lot of energy, you want to try
Yeah.
everything.
Mm.
And then I came across to a Brazilian jiu-jitsu coach that he was living in Argentina. And Argentina, he was from Brazil.
What was Sensei thinking when you shared that you want more action and everything? What was his
Well,
reaction?
no, he totally understood. He totally understood. Like that at that age I needed to do it. So he always support me and try to guide me in the right direction. Don't forget
Nice.
that he was doing judo and kyokushin.
Exactly. So he knows the action already. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was black belt on these three martial arts. So Aikido was an option for him when he got older. So, but I think it was a perfect timing for him, because like he really discovered the deepness of the martial art, and there is certain things that you cannot do forever. So I think Aikido in that way is awesome, for many people. And it could be also jiu-jitsu nowadays, like jiu-jitsu, you can see there's a lot of people even competing in the older age, and they can still perform. That you cannot do probably that with a striking art like Muay Thai or
No. Yeah.
kickboxing,
Yeah.
which is devastating for your joints, and
There's no
it's super
chance.
tough. Yeah. Or even MMA, like MMA is something that you could do only when you're young. It's a young man's sport, let's say. Of course, you can train all your life, but when we talk about competition, you don't want to put yourself, 35 plus or something. It's not a good idea. Even if I did until very old, but I was lucky. I was gifted with that. So yeah. So that's a little bit the story of Sensei. That for me is, I mean, an amazing role model. And I
Mhm,
still
mhm.
living by his teaching. You know.
And I liked what you said when you said everything that I saw from you on the mats that came from him. And I remember we met in Frankfurt MMA Spirit like what over 10 years ago, right? And I signed up at that gym as well, and I was going into MMA classes, and I figured out that I really liked the ground more than everything else. And I did judo as a child, and I was hitting kimuras and Americanos on kids on the boys. It's like, oh, I know this from before, so that stuff works. And then there was a blue belt walking in, and he completely destroyed me. And I said, yeah, we have only jujitsu classes here as well. And then I transferred to only jujitsu more and more, and I loved it. But yeah, I remember like coming from judo also, they do things different. And I liked what you said with the tea ceremony. Like, I have the feeling everything they touch, they master. I mean, look at sushi. They cook rice for 10 years before they touch a fish. Who's doing that? No one's doing that. I love what they do. It's a fascinating culture and people, and I really I love it from day one, from since I was a child. It's amazing.
Imagine for me how lucky I was to come across a person from there, and at that time, at that age of my life, so really, really changed, like everything, all my view of life, like even my university degree in sports, I did it because he told me, like he didn't tell me do that, but he told me, I remember he was also a chiropractor, so he studied chiropractic, in
Okay.
Japan. And I used to go to help him, where he do his practice, and maybe just do some coffee or something, just be next to him, because he was such an amazing person. And I remember at the time, when I finished, with high school, he told me, okay, what are you gonna do now? And then I said, like, I don't know, I'm just gonna train. When you're a kid, you don't know. And then
Yeah.
he told me, why you don't go to university? Why you don't start to study? It's always good to have an education. And his words, they were so strong for me that's like, oh, I consider that, and I knew that also would be awesome for my family, for my mom and my dad, that they want that for me.
Mm,
So I started to study biotechnology, and I did 2 years of biotechnology. And then it came across a point that I could not do it anymore, like in training. I have just to focus to that.
mm, mm.
And well, then I decided, well, no, this is not what I want to do all my life. I don't want to be in a lab the rest of my life. So I love martial arts, so I'm gonna do martial arts. What was the, like the opportunities at that time? Remember that I'm 45, so like this was the time that UFC was starting, and it was Pride time, like a
Yeah.
Shogun, Wanderlei Silva, Vito Belfort. I said like, wow, I want to do that. Yeah, so watching those videos, and I remember getting excited. It's like, okay, I will do this. I will change my career. I will study sports. So I get the diploma that I promised
Okay.
to my mom, and then right
Okay.
after I'm gonna fight. When I get graduated, I did the whole study. I advanced 1 year just to be able to compete, because they were offering me MMA fights since I was 23, but I didn't want to do it. I want to like finish the career and everything. So soon as I finished, 3 months later, I started to fight. It was my first MMA fight, professional. I was a purple belt, and I fought a guy in a light heavyweight division. So we catch up the weight. So I was like 43, 44 kilos, and he was 103. So that guy became later PFL champion. So
Okay.
I get a win on him. It was
Wow.
yeah,
Interesting.
that was a good victory for me. Like it was the first one, and it was a full stadium in the center of Buenos Aires. Imagine, how people are super like,
Wow.
they're like, very excited about, like they're in football. They're the same with these things. So it was awesome, and it was the opening for me to start to fight MMA. And they offered me later another fight that I also won. The first one was Northside Choke, Marcelinho, and at that time nobody knew that position. Even I don't think that Marcelo was doing it at that time. Maybe yes, but I don't know. I
Okay.
just got the position from a highlight that I saw from Tito Ortiz and ADCC, and he's finishing somebody with that. So like, I should give it a try.
Yeah.
And I got that in my first fight, and in the second fight I got a number, I think. And then they start to offer me fight, in Brazil, and then the rest is history, Europe and all that.
You went for a lot of submissions, right? Not to. Yeah. You always preferred that. That was the way to go,
Well,
right? To finish the
I start
fights.
with Kyokushin. I become, like Argentinian champion, like in Kyokushin, and when I was a green belt, and I like the knockouts at that time, especially high kick with the left, like southpaw is my stance. So
Yeah. Yeah. I
this is nice.
remember.
I like body shots too, you know, but there is nothing for me to compare to beat all the defense of the person and get to his back and go like real naked choke. And
And they give up, right? They say, I can't do it anymore.
yes,
Please stop. That's the best.
this is, there is no compare, like a local, of course, it's an art and it's a beautiful thing and it's something that you have to train. And there's a lot of science behind, the moves that you have to do. But I don't know, like having both opportunity, I always looking for the submission. It makes me more happy to win by submission.
Yeah. I can understand that. I also remember, I think you said when you were a blue belt, you already tapped like on a daily base brown belts. But was that on competition or on the mats
No,
training?
that was on the mat. That like the
But still, I mean, that's pretty
yeah,
impressive,
like
right?
well, like for me, I like at that time when I was a blue belt, I have 15 years behind me of martial arts. Okay, my blue belt I got it like when I have 4 months of training.
Yeah, I remember that as well.
I got that blue belt because we went to a big tournament and all the people from our gym were losing that day and they were the best. So like if we have a bad day, and that day the maestre, the teacher from Brazil came to watch, and it was the first day that he came back to Argentina. He was in Brazil, so he stood up and I was fighting a guy. I was a white belt and I was fighting a blue belt, no gi division. And then he stood up and he looked at me and said, if you win, I will give you the blue belt. Freddy Sucata is a guy that I love, like very, very, very good for me at that time, to get to know him. And well, like I was like struggling on that fight until I hear that, and I went to the mount and like a triangle from the mount, and I won. And I went to him and I say, hey, I won the blue belt, but actually didn't say for real, because I knew that I needed more time. But
Yeah.
the next week after the tournament, I go to the gym to train, and I will never forget because it was a beautiful white mat, and they have like a big window behind, so the sun come through the window, and I'm waiting there, to warm up, and you can see my shadow, on the mat, and I see
Uh-huh.
a huge shadow covering me. And Freddy it is now that it's tall, it's like super tall, like almost maybe 2 meter tall. It was a
Okay.
huge, and he covers me, like, and when I turn around, he just hit the blue belt on my chest, and he say,
Oh,
"You deserve this." It's like, what? No, wait a second.
wow.
And yeah, I think what I was me and another guy, like the fastest guy to get the blue belt at that time. And well, after that, I have to live by like that standard, so I start to train even more.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's amazing. And then you competed on a regular base and you went to all the tournaments in Argentina, correct? And you won them all. And then you left Argentina, went to Brazil. Can you tell us a little bit more about that part as
Yeah,
well?
I won everything that I competed at that time in Argentina. I lost in two opportunities. When I was a purple belt, I lost by 2 points given by the referee for like it was a
Yeah.
takedown and the referee give it to him. And
You took him down and the other guy
yeah,
gets the points.
I started the takedown inside the mat. I end up the takedown outside the mat. So they didn't give me the 2 points. And then we went 0-0. And I was a purple belt and he was a black belt. So, and we went to the referee decision, and the referee was a very good friend of mine. Actually, he was later my co-worker in the first gym that we opened in Argentina. So
Okay.
he felt like I could not give it to my friend, like I have, I have to be more, like
Neutral.
yeah, so but it's okay because that later opened opportunity for me to train with that black belt. It's one of the best black belt that you have in Argentina even today. An amazing guy. So it was good for me later to learn from him. And then I lost another time against a Brazilian black belt that he came. And also that was my mistake. I thought that the time was gone, and I just chill on the guard like, and he passed, and it was 2 seconds left or something. So he
Mm,
scored the point. So,
okay.
but that was in finals of open weight class that I crossed him. I cleaned the whole division and I win also my division
As a purple belt.
as a purple belt. Yeah, yeah. So I was pretty, but like I say, like I have like another 15 years behind of training and conditioning training, and I was pretty coordinated and strong. So jiu-jitsu came across to me in a good time of my life. So like it was like not so difficult to do. I was experienced with other tournaments, even if they're not jiu-jitsu. You have the experience of competition, so it was a little bit.
Yeah. How much do you think is talent and how much is hard work and how much is luck in these regards and
Well, like I think we all have a talent. We all have something to explore. inside yourself. But then you need to put in hard work. You're not going to discover what is your talent if you don't put it into work. So, but I think everybody has a skill, and a skill that you can explode and develop. And it could be your flexibility, it could be your speed, it could be your strength. You need to identify the part that it is and then go from there and start to work on it. And I would say start to work first on the things that work, and then slightly, move to the things that they don't work, but create confidence by start to, like trust on yourself, and that the things that you do on the mat and the training, they will work later in competition. This I think is very important. But I believe especially in jiu-jitsu, if you tell me, no, you're gonna do MMA and you have this guy that he has a long reach and he's long and tall and fast, well, that's a huge of a talent for MMA, especially in these rules of 5 minutes round and 3 rounds or 5 rounds.
I'm smiling for one reason. Every time I think about you, and every time, and now it's a combination. It's you sitting here in front of me on the screen, and we're talking about jiu-jitsu, we're talking about tournaments. There's that one story that I tell everyone, that I meet. You know which one it is. So
I
it's
know.
our friend Emre competing. We're all white belts, right? We're all on the same tournament. And I'm standing next to you, like everyone, we're freaking out. Everyone is nervous, right? Emre has the guy in an armbar, and we're like, we can't wait that he wins the fight. And the guy is not tapping. And you just stand there like no problem, like ice cold, and you say to him, "Si se rompe," And then Emre goes super hard, it almost breaks his arm. And the guy, luckily enough, the guy taps in the last second. Yeah, that was the best. I was surprised, let's break that arm. I mean, he had enough chances to tap, right?
Yeah, he has enough chances, and like, like there is one thing that I learned from Sensei. He says like you should say like the technique, needs to be executed correctly. So of course that you have, the choice to be nice to the person and don't hurt him, and you should do that, if you're a good sportsman.
Mm.
But then you have to respect the technique, and you cannot go less on the technique if the person is like not agreeing to give up, because
Mhm.
then it's his responsibility to take care of himself. So we all have the opportunity to tap. So if you cross that barrier and say, okay, I don't want to tap on this, okay, I want to expose my arm and get it broken, well, it's your
It's
choice.
your fault. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
the
No, I like that.
yeah, the technique is, it has to be performed correctly, and you cannot you cannot lower your standard because of the other person is not accepting the defeat, and I think that's also translate very good in life, like you cannot lower your standard for certain things that you know that you're doing good, and other people don't understand that, and you should keep your standards high, and the techniques they teach you this, so
It is true. I'm always so confused. I think that's not a topic anymore. But years ago, when there's certain people saying competition, we don't tap to leg locks.
oh,
What are they talking about? Like I never understood this. And then they get the legs broken in all directions, and they still sitting there in the competition. I don't understand that.
I
Why
will,
would you do that?
rephrase that sentence, that quote, and I will say, we don't tap to leg locks the first time. You know, After a surgery, 6 months out, come back, try to do the rehab, go back and start to train again. I promise you, you probably will tap pretty quick. I have 4 surgeries on my knees, not by leg lock, only one by leg lock, but was a bad intentional guy, in the training in Brazil, and I never even have the chance to tap, like, and I got an injury. So when you get hurt and you need to go to the hospital, and do the whole rehab, and your life change, dramatically, especially if you're fighting, then you realize, well, if I understand that the position is lost, and this guy outsmart me in a better position, there's no shame to tap on that.
Exactly. Exactly.
I will never forget the first time I competed in a big tournament in Brazil. I think it was in Rio. It was Rio de Janeiro. I don't remember exactly which tournament it was. I think it was ADC with Guy. So it was a huge tournament. Next to me was Rodolfo Vieira. It was Bruno Malfacine. This amazing like royalty of jiu-jitsu competing right next.
Okay.
and I was a brown belt. So I managed to tap two black belts, and I was advancing, on the brackets. And then I came across to Murilo Santana, an amazing guy that at the time that I started to train jiu-jitsu, he was already a black belt.
Okay.
So that was the day that I learned how to do the armbars today, because I get the fight was good, the match was good in the stand up, I have a good base and blah blah until we went to the ground, and then I have no chance. So he systematically dismantled me and went to the mount and then slide the arm, and he got me in a position that I will never forget because I remember had the thought I will turn away, to escape the armbar. And when I start to think about it, he just adjusts that position a little bit more, just to let me know not a good idea.
Yes.
And I just realized that he shows me with such a superiority on me at that time, being a brown belt and never competing that type of tournaments. That wow, this guy knows way more than me. So I tap, like, and grateful that he didn't.
Nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
Yes, and it was my first loss by tapping any tournament.
Okay. At brown belt, first time.
First time, yes.
Wow.
So
Wow.
it took a while. So then
That's
later,
impressive.
I direct myself to MMA. Start to focus more into MMA and all the fighting styles.
Roberto, excuse me when I jump a little bit between top, like a little bit back and forth. But with, of course, I mean, martial arts. You mentioned martial arts and martial artists. What's for you a martial artist? Is everyone who is doing a certain combat sport for a certain amount of time, is he already a martial artist for you?
Well, like at the beginning, like you think it is, but then later, when you've been around for a while and you've been around the world and you start to, like see many different places where they train and how they train and what it means to them, then I like to signify like martial arts like it's a way of life. And I'm probably because the influence of my sensei, I'm more towards the Japanese idea of the martial art, that it means that you look for kaizen, you look for constantly improve yourself in everything that you do in your life, and of course no one of us is perfect in anything. I have a lot of flaw like everyone else, but at least it's the attempt to get better. When you identify an area in your life that is not working well, and you think, okay, this is not something that I can manage correctly, then you start to look at that and it starts to become better and better. At least you have the intention to do it. So
Mhm.
I think martial art is a person who developed himself through this tool, whatever it is, the tool. If it's a Chinese martial art, if it's Japanese, if it's a Korean or whatever, martial art is that. It's something that is a tool that it brings to your life, like a lot of awareness, mindfulness and self-control, and it makes you a better person. So if anything that you do related to martial art is doing that to your life, I consider it a martial art.
No, that's interesting that you say that also with making someone a better person. I always have that feeling that everything that comes from Far East and especially Japan, they really tick that box. We mentioned karate, we mentioned judo, especially these guys. Um, I don't often, like, no disrespect. I love all the everything that has to do with combat as well, combat sports, but I don't see like. I don't know, a boxing club in the UK that they have the same type of behavior. Like you said one thing, making someone a better person. What I really look at also these days is how they behave on the mats. How are you with your training partners if you absolutely smash them during the rounds?
Yeah,
How are you with these guys afterwards? How are you behaving if you get smashed?
yeah,
Right.
Right? It's very different. How are you with the coaches, the senior people on the mats?
How
How
are
yes,
are
you?
you behaving, new joiners? There's so much to that, and all this, you know, big mouth and talk. Like I don't know. I don't like this, and I see that a lot in other areas in other combat sports.
yeah. That's the thing, that you can do a clear distinction between a martial art, that it comes with the traditional roots, like karate or judo or even jiu-jitsu, to the combat sports, like sport that they were developed, to compete only. And the only focus of the thing is just, like in a small part, of of like of your life that you can compete. You put that as a premise, so it's your first intention is to compete there, fight, win, and make some money. So they don't address all these other areas, like of spirituality that the martial art has. I think a martial art, you should cover, like three basic factors. That is the mind, the body, and the spirit. And the mind is like, of course, you start to realize that new understanding of position, like how the body works. So you start to like, okay, if I do this, this will happen. And then your body starts to adapt to that, and it gets more healthy, more resilient. And when we say about the spirit, or like the deepness in you, I would say this is like your development as a person. So all these combat sport, they don't have this. So
Mm.
it's a little bit dangerous to give such a tool to a person where when he doesn't develop this part, because then it's a very powerful person, and it can make a lot of damage. And the only thing you probably do is like enhance his ego. So he's going through life now with a powerful weapon, but he doesn't know how to use it.
Mm.
So it could be a problem. It's a problem in many places. So yeah.
Yeah, when it comes also to behavior, I also have my little story that I just told a friend a little while ago when I was talking about you and on the mats and jujitsu and everything. Um, so I was always so impressed by you. You just at that time 30 something, and I always had that feeling talking to that very knowledgeable, very wise old sensei. You always had that metaphors and like very interesting stories. One day I was saying, I don't feel like, it's so fun, like at white belt stage, like it's so funny now to look back. Like there's no problem with that, but like, oh my God, I'm not developing. It's like, come on, relax, just a white belt. You will be fine. But and you said, what do you know about bamboo? And I'm like, I don't know. What are you talking about? And then you said, well, bamboo is like it goes to a certain level, certain height, but you don't see it growing anymore. But in fact, the roots are growing so much. This is where you at right now. So, oh wow, this, what is he using here? Like, was listening to a old sensei. Was I
And the
loved it.
tip of that story, I learned it actually from my sensei. I heard it for the first time from him, and I remember it was a woman training, and she was training every day, and she was pretty good, but she didn't see her improvement. And I remember we were sitting eating, and then the sensei told the story, and that goes through my brain, and I said like, wow, this is just amazing, So, like I say, 99% of who I am is not something that I invent. I get it from him. And probably I developed certain things later by my own, but everything is
Yeah.
sense. Like even that story, I got it from him. So, but I think I said a few times to other students, and I think it's a good way to open up their mind to understand that there is a process that you need to do, and especially when you start, you think that everything will come up to you very easy, and then when you develop and you're in a different stage, you start to look back at yourself and say like, oh wow, like I thought at that
Mm.
time that this should be like this, and now you know how it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like that you respected your sensei so much. You took all that knowledge and you transferred it and gave it to us and now your students and everything. But I think you definitely added your own flavor. I remember there was one thing, and you let me know if that's only your sensei or that was you. But I know you were sitting there watching us, and I was sparring with another guy, and to be fair, I would say, I mean, who cares? I'm at that stage, white belts as well. And I like the guy. He was slightly like had the edge, like he was always a little bit better. But I think at that time he was always a little bit like more aggressive, like he was dropping knees and like elbows and stuff. Was a little bit frustrating, annoying. And he always hurted me, always, every time some injury and everything. And there was something with my thumb, and I was like, I was so angry, and I was like, that can't be true. Like every single round I go with him, I'm off for a month because he's doing something with my joints. I took my mouthpiece. I'll never forget that. That was in your class, and I felt so bad afterwards. I took my mouthpiece and I was throwing it in the on the mats, and I was using bad words and everything. And you just walked to me like super relaxed, like ice cold again. You said, um, do I need to call an ambulance? It's just you and me, just like no one. You did it in a way that I felt shit about myself so bad. It was worse than the pain that I had in my fingers, that you came to me and said, do I need to call an ambulance, or like what do you want to do? And I was looking at you and said, shit, that's not good what I'm doing here. And I felt so bad for weeks and months. And I said, and then like instantly the pain went away, and I said, actually, no, I don't need an ambulance. I'm good. And then I kept rolling. I said, why I'm doing this? That was a great lesson. I love that one.
100% me. That's a part of growing up in Buenos Aires that I cannot take away from me, So that's me, Yeah, yeah. But I remember that, and it happens many times, It's like it's hard to deal with the frustration, but like in that time, for me, as a black belt and teaching those classes, I need to, like try to remain calm and like be a role model for you. I cannot, like. I cannot loosen up to like you know on those moments, because it's when you need to learn there, like this emotional awareness about you and what you're doing actually. So I think if you have a good role model that is doing that, you will get it more easy. There's many words that I can tell you, but if you don't have it and as an example next to you, probably you will not get it. So that's why I always try to behave like this. And of course, you know, when I was younger, I experienced those feelings too, and I have the same reactions, like. But I think one thing was coming across my sense, and another thing has been training for so long, that you see that many times. So where the person is, you feel that empathy for him because you've been there before, and you've been frustrated too. Like I always tell the story, when I was a kid, I was probably 8 years old, and I was beating everybody on the training, like. And until the teacher saw that I started to get pretty cocky, like very arrogant about it.
Hmm.
So one day he brought this guy from another gym that he was training with him, from another filial, and it was a bigger guy than me. It was probably 10, so 2 years older, but that's enough.
Yeah, in that age especially. Yeah.
I got beat up so bad, and I started to cry on the sparring, crying, literally crying, and I'm punching, the protections on the chest, and I'm punching, and I'm crying, and the sensei is telling me, "Yeah, you want to quit?" No, no, and I keep punching it, frustrated that I got super beat up, But that also, those frustration they taught me later, with the years. It's like, okay, so I was not on the right place. I needed to learn how to, manage my emotions, how to control myself and self regulate. And through martial art, you will learn that. So all those things are important to happen, because you come to the dojo, to the training, to the academy, and you're not supposed to know those things. You're gonna develop those things on your training.
Yeah.
It's super important that
It's a place where you learn. Yeah.
yeah, it's super important that you have a guy like that also. He can tell you this, like it happened with me. And at that time I was there for you, but probably you will do this to a young new student that is training with you, and they will know from you. So that torch, that fire is passing,
That's
from
nice,
generation
man.
to
I love it.
generation.
That's
Yes.
just beautiful. Yeah, it is. Um, yeah, something that you mentioned now, I think that the behavior on the mats, also, what frustrates me, and like, what are your thoughts? How would you deal with this these days? Like sometimes I see people on the mats, and they're not kids anymore, adults, and there's a black belt on the mats. He spent his entire life with jujitsu. He's like 5 degree like stripe black belt and everything, and then he's showing a technique, and then people are sitting like they're on the beach or something.
Yeah.
I can't, that's so painful to watch, and I don't know, like.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that doesn't happen with me. Like my students, they know me. Like, so everybody's sitting correct, and it's not about the sitting correct of the person that is watching, that just to show respect to that person that is teaching. It's more about, if you're there to learn, if nobody force you to do this, and you're really there, you want to learn, you want to put your body in a position that is actually prepared to learn. And how the body behaves is how your mind behaves. So when I see in these new generations that the people like lay down or like this, and it's probably I used to get mad at that. Now I think probably they don't know, the tool they have, and they don't know how to transform his body, through their mind, and how to transform their mind through his body. So the posture is super important if you want to learn, So I think I see it today more like, okay, well, it's something that I will explain to them, and I will let them know that they're not doing any help to themselves, more than of course, the respect that you should have for a person that has been training there for, ever, and you have to show, of course, some appreciation, but it's more about you. If you lay down and you like, what type of attention are you paying to the person? Are you really, focused, or like when you sit back straight and like in yourself, you have your breathing correct and you're like ready to learn, So
Mm-hmm.
nowadays, look, I'm very surprised. Like for a few years, we've been, after I retired of fighting MMA, we got affiliated to Marcelo Garcia Academy, so we are directly affiliated to the one of the biggest, academies in the world, and I have the opportunity to train with Marcelo, already in New York twice, and I've been there last year. And the one thing that is amazing for me, when you go over there, there is no need to say these things. It's like you have the feeling that when you go to New York and you train there, you have the feeling that you're stepping into a university, you know, and the place that you're gonna behave for yourself without nobody telling you anything, because everybody's there to learn, you know. So it could be a class full of people, and you see, especially because all the black belts, they maintain this etiquette, and this
Yeah,
behavior,
yeah.
that immediately the white belts and the blue belts, if they do it for a short time, they will later, like try to adapt and be part of that energy. So definitely Marcelo has created one of the best energies on the mat, and everybody's super friendly, but they're killers, so like everybody's awesome. So it's really, really amazing to see that.
Yeah, I only know him from YouTube, right? I've never met him in person, but yeah, he looks like or gives the impression of being the sweetest person on the planet, and like he can kill you in 3 seconds, right? You rolled with him, and you said that was a different experience, right?
Yeah, like I have the chance. Like I was training there on the first time. I think it was 2014, and I was doing. I don't remember. What was I think it was Bernardo. Also, Bernardo Farias was training there. He rolls with me. He was the first one, which is also amazing. And then Marcela came to correct me some positions. So we move around, and he teach me the positions, like in the life, movement,
Mm.
and it was just unbelievable. Now, in 2 months, end of August, I'm visiting him in Hawaii. So we're gonna be
Oh,
there. I have
nice.
one of my students going for a month to train with him, and I will be there the last week of August. And hopefully, I can be with him again and train with
Oh,
him
nice,
after
nice.
so long time. And yeah, it was amazing just from the first day when I met him. I went to Imagine New York. It's a full pack class, and I was the first time there, and like nobody knows me. So at that time, I remember, yeah, I don't know if you remember, I had my hair very short, and like my ears
Yeah.
popping out. I was more like an MMA fighter. So
Yes,
Marcelo
yes.
came to talk to me on the class, and he was the sweetest guy ever, super nice.
Mm.
And we had friends in common, because I was living in Brazil, in Salvador Bahia. I was training there with Amanda Nunes and a couple of guys, and Marcelo knows these guys.
Yeah,
So we start to speak, I speak Portuguese, and then we start to
yeah.
speak in Portuguese in the middle of the class. And he took at least like a 10 minutes, of the warm up just to talk to me, and it was the first time that I met him in person. And, he reminds me my sensei, like the one that I started when I was a kid. And then it's like, wow, this guy is just amazing, not only technically, but also as a person. So
Yeah, yeah.
from that time on, I was in a pursuit to become part of his academy. And it took me like around 5 years, finish my MMA career and, like focus on what I was doing in the sport. And then I finally got it, and now we have been affiliated for, I think it's over 2 years now. and it's been an amazing experience so far, and we're learning a lot, not only from Marcelo but also from his coaches, like Mateus Diniz, like all the guys there. They're really amazing, so I'm super happy with that. And
So how does that partnership really work for you? How do you benefit from that? Like how often do you have exchange with these guys?
well, like like mostly I try to go once a year or twice a year, and that we are planning now to bring them, here to Vienna to do some seminar. Probably next year, Marcelo is gonna be around like Europe, so that will be a good opportunity for us to bring it in, and like do a big seminar, and you know bring him close to the people that they're training, or maybe the blue belts, the white belts, like people who are not so into the sport yet.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing, and it's not only that, like we learn the techniques, and we learn, the way that he conduct the school, but also we learn his philosophy, behind.
Yeah,
I think for me it was like doing a master degree on training. Is really
nice.
a person that you can learn a lot, and technically, of course, there's it's just unbelievable. I always describe, like I have the chance to roll with a lot of world champions and UFC fighters, and people around the world, and I always say like everybody's just amazing, like these guys are awesome, but Marcelo is from another planet.
It's from another planet, right? Yeah.
Just you can put it like this, like I would say, okay, if I need to get to the level of these guys that they've been training with gi, and my main thing was always MMA and no gi, right? And I can maybe put myself in focus and like train a year 2 years, and I would be in that level. But if I want to be in the level of Marcelo, probably I need to have one or two more lives, to get to that level. It's just different.
Well, if it's two lives for you, then that's
Two
for
or
the
three, I
average
would say three,
Joe,
maybe.
like times 10 for everyone else.
Yes, no, it's you have the feeling when you roll with him, when you move with him, that you are just a white belt, even if you.
Wow, that's incredible.
So yeah, and it's such a powerful thing that is also so nice and so open. And he explained everything. You can tell that he really loves what he do. He really true live his life like a true martial artist. So this inspired you. Like to do this and to pass this on to the new generation. That's
Yeah,
that's my
yeah,
part. Learn as much as I can and keep passing this on to the new guys.
yeah, that's true. How excited was that when he came back to compete? That was the best
It
one,
was so
huh?
awesome. Yes.
That was so good.
So I
Yeah.
couldn't wait to see.
What a performance.
Wow, that's what I mean. It's like unbelievable. It's just from another planet.
I hope we see more of that. I hope we see more.
Hopefully, yes. Hopefully, yes. It would be awesome. It would be awesome. So
Are you watching any grappling and jiu-jitsu competitions? Are you
I
following
watch.
anything?
I watch. Yeah, like of course, I see like the main guys, competing, and like now that I have my own dojo, my own studio, it's a small place, so we train gi, no gi, and we do also MMA. So I'm on the, like because I have young guys that want to compete in no gi and gi, so they're super excited about this. So we need to watch them like I watch opponents for my MMA fighters, so what is going on now, what we need to where we need to be, like how is the new requirements of this era in grappling and jiu-jitsu, and we need to adapt and improve, and like try to work as hard as we can, like of course with the fundamentals that we learned from Marcelo, like and try to adapt as much as we can, the style to be successful in competitions.
What's the biggest trend at the moment that you see?
Well, like I don't know if I'm with the I don't know if I'm update with the trends, but what I can tell you is like I think, of course, the leg lock time pass. As a lot of people know how to defend the leg locks. If you've been from the time that I am, and you talk with the older teachers, like Ricks and all those guys, they've already been saying that will happen,
Okay.
and they knew because they were doing this long time ago, so they knew that it will be a trend as something that it will be for a certain time until people start to adapt and improve and they start to know how to defend. And now I think that game, it was very beneficial, and they using this to take the back. The back is always, the best spot that you can be, and then they go for
Yeah,
submissions from there. So I think it's the most dominant position, and I will not say only in jiu-jitsu, I would say in any type of a sport. If you see
exactly.
Lomachenko throwing a punch and getting the angle to your back, and when you turn, he goes back and punch you again, like
Yeah.
it's actually doing the same thing. Or same
Yeah.
chai in Muay Thai, so it's the same principle. They try to achieve that position that is dominant. But
Yeah.
I don't know, I like now we're working a lot with the guys with K guards, like it's something that is like not my main game and stuff, but we are
Okay.
developing this, and I think it's good for the guys to know this. I have that idea, even if we are always focused, on andrax and butterfly sweeps, that's the main thing. Is single leg X and X guards, that's the root of the style of Marcelo. We always try to get a touch on the other things, like a 50-50 or positions that you need to be familiar with,
Mm-mm.
with the level of competition, like,
Yeah, yeah.
me, I live, my life is not like I have a life, go to the movies and stuff. My life is on the mat. And then the
Yes.
rest is because, I have to do these things, I have to take a shower, I have to eat, I have to do the other stuff.
Yes, you have to do.
Yeah, so that's what I'm happy. So we spend, like, recently we have add to the trainings because I have one of my students, Matthias Prehofer, is about to fight. He's a champion here in Austria, and he's about to fight a big event on the 21st of June. So we add 36 hours more of training a month.
Wow. Oof. Okay, that's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot. So yeah.
You are also still active, right? Like, when was that Inferno championship? You won the title, super lightweight.
Yeah, I no, that was my last fight. When
That
I
was the
was
last one?
That was the last one, yes. And when I was 42 years old, I'm 45 now, 3 years ago.
That was 3 years already.
Yeah, 3 years already passed. Yeah, super fast. And
Wow.
my son is 3 years and 3 months. So when I went to that fight, like I have to say goodbye to my son, and I went there to fight. And I realized that it's something that I cannot do anymore because it was someone more important to me than myself, more special to me. And of course, like you don't think about getting hurt in a fight, but there's a huge chances that you get hurt and
That
maybe
something goes wrong.
badly hurt, so when he was here, I realized he needs me the most. And I did what I wanted to do in my life. I traveled the world fighting. I fought everywhere, from Brazil, Sweden, Germany, whatever. So I really accomplished my dream. My dream was, when I was a young kid, the first idea I have is, okay, I want to do martial art and be able to fight anybody and anywhere in the world. And I did it. So, I was happy with that, but I couldn't go to fight anymore, having my son there and having to come back to
Mm,
him. I
mm,
was, I was thinking, if I get injury, he will suffer because of that.
yeah.
So I could not afford to fight in MMA anymore. And I captured my second title there, and I think it was enough, getting two titles in such a prestige, like organization. Here's the best organization in one of the best in Europe and the best in Austria. And I'm super happy for that. I fought the international fight, a guy that right now is getting into the house, the turf with Chel Sonnen. He's on
Okay.
the team, and that guy is amazing. And it was a very dangerous fighter, come from 5 knockouts, before me. He was knocking people left and right. And a young 25-year-old, from the Conor McGregor's gym.
Okay, okay.
So
Irish guy.
Irish guy. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think he has other roots, but living in Ireland.
Okay.
So, but super tough. And I think that guy, he will be someone that is gonna make a lot of noise, So because it was not easy at all, not easy at all. I have the luck, to catch it on the right moments of the fight, but very interesting fighter, dangerous, and also proved me that it was enough for my age, like a 42 fighting 25-year-old guys.
Yeah.
It's like I
Mm.
think it was a stretch. I'm happy that I could do it, but
Yes.
that was the time to stop MMA, and now I'm more focused on teaching, and bringing the values of the martial art to this new generation. And of course, I will come back to compete. When I'm and settle everything better here with the dojo and with the classes. I could never stay away from competition. So I think I will come back
Yeah.
to and no gi. And the master maybe 15. I don't know where is my class. Like it's it's super master. But I will be there for sure.
Master, endless,
Endless, yeah, infinite.
final boss.
Yes, yes.
Why you called your place dojo and not like gym or whatever, Roberto Pastuch Jiu-Jitsu? Why is it dojo?
Like most of the time, like to people who are not into martial art, I call it studio, like, because it's a small place. And this place came to the necessity that I have to really try to show the true values of the martial art. When I came to Vienna, I had the opportunity to teach in two of the most biggest, gym here, like facility wise, like really big, big, big. And then we've been training people and put people in the UFC and stuff. But I felt empty, teaching in those places. I felt that I could not really express, what a martial art means. So after I have my last experience with one of the biggest gym here, I said, okay, I will gonna open my own place. It's gonna be a small place, and we're gonna be no more than 20, 30 people maximum. I want to know everyone's life, like my sensei used to know everyone, and help them with their life. Not just to get better, as a martial artist, but we help each other. We create a small community that it represents more the values of a dojo and not a gym. A
Yeah.
gym is a place probably where you go to train physically and that you improve, of course, and it's something beneficial for you to train your body. But in the dojo, you try to achieve a transformation. You try to become a different, better person, better version of yourself. So that's why I call it dojo. Like in the honor of these old schools in Japan that they're called like this, and
Yeah.
that's what we try to do here. We try
Yeah.
to get better. So in my dojo, you don't just get a membership. There is not tryouts, like to get in. It's not a
They have to sit. They have to sit in the rain for a week and ask for
yeah, not well.
permission.
It's we do not that bad. I would love to do that, but I think I will go to jail. I cannot do that. what what we do is people who come, they only come by recommendation.
Mm.
Everybody is welcome to come. If somebody recommend him, it's a friend or someone they know, but only if they truly looking for transform themselves through martial art. If you're just looking for competition, this is what happened a little bit here in Vienna. Like the image of martial art for the people is seen like only for hooligans or people who want to fight on the streets or people who
Okay.
want to
Okay.
damage other people, and that's not at all what
Yeah.
martial art means to me. So that's why I end up leaving all these big gyms, with a lot of students and stuff, because it was to me that they just want to make money with them. They're not
Okay.
committed to really, like pass this knowledge. And it's a big problem, because then you create a new like generation of young guys that they think that solving the problems by fighting on the street is the way to become better. So that's not what I want to do.
Yeah.
Definitely at this point of my life, after 37 years training martial art, I want to be surrounded with people who really, like looking for have this type of, like learning, and I learning myself with them. It's not that I only teach; I learn with them too. It's a beautiful path of martial art, and
Yeah.
I cannot afford at this age, to not be doing the thing that I want to do. Regardless to that. It's like it's very important for me to this knowledge that I got from my sense. I get it from so many people, that they help me out with this. I want to pass it in a correct way, so you become a better person, so like dojo means that to me, and everyone that is inside, they feel the same, and you can see in the way they train and the way they act and the way they behave. And yeah, it's just awesome, so
That's beautiful. That's a nice how you summarize it and explained. I really like that. Beautiful idea. You also wrote a book, and I remember the day when I saw a story on Instagram, and I was losing it. I said, "What? Roberto wrote a book? I cannot believe it. Where can I get it now?" So I was
Yeah.
reaching out to you, and then I had the digital version. Like, how is it going with the book? And what made you write that book?
It's going very well. I think, like now we're gonna start to promote it more. Also, I wanted to have it in paper. Like
Yes.
that's the idea. We have to be a new edition of that. So I will be working on that very soon. The thing is, we have so many things going on right now that I could not focus on that. But it will come out probably next year. And I'm writing a second book, but it's
Oh,
more about experiences and the stories in training. A little bit more a simple book of just anecdotic things that happen, because this first book, it really come from my heart. It come from a
I
difficult
love that.
time. Yeah,
I
it
love that.
just needed to express myself, from deep in, and it was the necessity to pass a little bit what is inside me to my son.
Hmm.
So I wrote that book based on him, and hopefully when he grew up, he could understand these things. So it was a true, like book written by the from the heart, like really, really.
Yeah.
So, but I think it's a little bit when you look back later, and then you start to talk about with the people who wrote them, like who read it, they say like, oh wow, there's a lot of things that they got complicated for them to understand. You have to have certain miles on the way, to understand the things that I described there. So it's clearly probably not a book for beginners. It will be interesting for a beginner, but I think it's more a book for a person who's been on the way for a while now.
For a while. I loved it. I went through the book, and I was marking so many pages, for myself. I was like, "Oh, this is amazing! This is amazing!" Like, and I almost ended up like to mark every second page something. I was like, "Oh, this is too much. I can
You
mark."
don't
The
know
whole
how
book.
how happy that makes me, and I have other friends that they wrote me the same things, and and give me that feedback, and how much they help them, not only like in training, but also in their life
Oh yeah, it's amazing.
point of view. So this is my whole purpose in life. This is my mission. This is what I'm born to do.
For the listeners, Roberto, can you please? There's one of my favorite parts in the book. It's the story about the carrot, the egg, and the coffee bean. Are you okay to tell us the story and like the idea behind?
Yeah, well, like that's 100% story that I learned from my sensei too. So like it's something that I will tell you what I felt when I hear it from the first time from him. And all these three substances, let's call it, they go through the same, situation. They all get, like in this hot water, and then the reaction to them is different. But I remember when Sensei told me these stories, because I have in this particular situation and training. I was very young, very strong, and I was training with an older guy, you know. And for me at that time, he was annoying to me. So
Why?
I don't know, I don't remember exactly what it was, but he was trying to stop the techniques, and we were
Okay.
drilling. So when we got to the sparring, I did something bad. I just threw him really hard, and it was
Okay.
an older guy, I should not do that. And I remember that Sensei called me after the training to his office, and he just got with me, and then he told me what happened. And then I started to say, he did this. And I said, no, no, what happened with you? And I said, like, it's because he did that thing, And I
Yeah.
always try to justify myself
Always, yeah, yeah, that he is.
of the other person, And since he
Yeah.
just quiet, like you say, stone face, and then he looked at me and he made me think, uh, like, okay, wait a second, it's not about him, it's about me. And then he told me that story, and then I keep it for me, like in my heart. And then I thought like it would be a good story to put on the book. I didn't tell this story. This is a new one that is the background of that story. And I realized I felt so bad later, and that was one of good turning points for me, to in martial arts. You start to understand, okay, we are like, or equal on the mat, but not everybody has the same skills or the same situations,
Mm.
so you should be very, like, careful and empathize with the situation of the other person, so. And that was, I was probably 23, 22 years old, full of testosterone, training like crazy. And I couldn't see this on other, and probably these guys was around, like, I don't know, 40, 45, like my age, but starting, beginner.
Oh, okay.
So I did wrong. And the sensei, with that story, he summarized, what it means to understand this. So I think it's a good story. I love the story to put on the book, because you can react different to the same circumstances, and depends on
Mm.
the way you can react. And I think that changed my life later. I went through a lot of difficulties in life, like in moving from country to country, for finding and pursuing the career. But I always keep this in my mind. And what I can tell you today, that story for me signifies the most important value as a person that I have for myself, that is to have integrity. If you have integrity, then you can build everything on top. So, like, if you miss that first value, it will be difficult later. you know
Yeah, yeah.
but
No, that's
another thing that
beautiful.
I
Yeah,
that I,
after.
that I that I learned from him, that I'm super grateful that he told me that at that time, at that age. And I could put it later right there in the book.
Yeah, that's true. That's an amazing story. There's many, many parts, but yeah, that one, that was interesting. And when I saw the title, I said, "Oh, I'm so curious what he's going to tell me now."
I have to be grateful also to one of my good friends, that he saw me from the first day that I stepped into a jiu-jitsu mat. He was already training there, and he helped me with this book, Matthias Kritz. And he was the one who helped me to also uh, summarize a lot of things. And the title idea that I have, he helped me to give it around. And we end up with that title. And it's thanks to him. It's also the art on the book. It belongs to him. So
Yeah,
uh,
it looks
imagine
very
a
nice.
guy that we've been together since day one, in the mats. So unbelievable, beautiful story.
Great. Where can people get the book?
You can get it in Gumroad right now. Also, I think there's you can get it also in Amazon, in the like all these I forgot the name, all these ebooks, that you.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Gumroad is 100% there. And we are about to launch now in the next month instructional videos that they're gonna be on my webpage
Okay,
com.
nice.
And we're gonna start also to do some online courses. So all this with the book is gonna be on the in the homepage of the dojo, so you can find it there.
How are they? What's different from the instructional to the online course?
Well, an instructional is a video of a summarize of techniques. Like when you put,
Okay.
like, okay, this is
Yeah.
step one, step two, step three on this technique. And the online course is something that is more that you interact with the courses. Of course, there is a videos of techniques, but you have an interaction with me. So it's like you doing the training, and you're doing, okay, I'm learning this position, these techniques, and then you have me as a coach, to guide you through the positions, so it's a different level of interaction. It's just an instructional video that you watch, and awesome, and that you
Nice.
learn
Okay.
from there. And
Okay.
when it's an online course, it's just a certain amount of time when I can have free, we will do it. I will be interacting with the people who buy these packages, of techniques. And they can ask me any questions, or what is the view, of what I'm showing them. And
Nice.
they give me the feedback. And we will do something pretty interesting on this, because the first part is going to be a part, like, it's very simple, but is many people, they just don't pay attention, and it's overview. That is the warm up, the proper warm up, and the reason behind the science behind the warm up. There is schools or ideas that warm up is not good, but I can tell you, since I've been doing warm up since 8 until 45, I think especially now, I can still train it like I train because of the warm ups. The second part of the video will be how to apply jiu-jitsu and MMA, because
Okay.
I having this
Mm.
experience of myself, coming from Brazil and doing jiu-jitsu there. the idea of jiu-jitsu as it is with gi, it changed radically when you go to Europe or to United States and you start to train with guys that they come from wrestling and they're doing MMA. And the
Mm.
rules in MMA, they go in favor of the guy on top.
Yeah.
So, there is a lot of things that you should do in jiu-jitsu rules that you should not do in MMA rules. So this is the second part, the second part of the videos. And I think people will be interested on that. I have 15 years experience fighting MMA. I have a lot of, I've had a great career, a lot of fights around the world. And I'm also a black belt, like second degree in this. And it's been like more than 25 years or something right now, of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Only 36, 37 years overall martial art training. So
Yeah.
MMA,
100%.
I
Yeah.
see it all, in MMA. So I think it's a good thing to start to bring this, especially for the beginners and people who want to start, just to choose the right way to do jiu-jitsu in MMA. Not the sport jiu-jitsu, which is awesome, and I love it, and I want to see it, but it's awesome when it works, like in the sport of jiu-jitsu, and you're fighting jiu-jitsu against jiu-jitsu. But when you're fighting jiu-jitsu against a MMA guy, you have to adapt differently, so that's
Oh, that's so interesting. Let me know when it's out. I wanna see
yes,
that.
I will definitely
Definitely share links. Share links with me. I'm sure we can put it for the listeners so they can go on that. The warm ups, yeah, Roberto, is something interesting. For me as a consumer, yeah, someone who just goes there to train jiu-jitsu. Now at 37, I don't know. I when I go, I imagine I go to a gym and they let me run in a circle for 45 minutes and jumping jacks. And now at this stage I'm not very excited doing that, because my idea is, listen, if I want to run, if I want to do push-ups, I want to do jumping jacks, I can do it now. I don't need, first of all, it comes a lot of things. I mean, you choose a gym, that's all fine, but there's all money involved, right? So people pay membership and stuff. So listen, people there for jiu-jitsu, I don't know if I want to do 45 minutes
I
jumping
agree
jacks
with
and
you
jumping
100%.
and so
100%.
I was never a big fan of that, really. So I think there's ways to warm up that are jujitsu specific, But please, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, what you just say, it's like, of course, like there is, like if you do like a so generic warm up, that those warm up, I will say they're not wrong from a person who come from the first day and have zero sport experience. It's the first time in his life that he probably wrong. You know, Nowadays you're gonna encounter a lot of people like this. So for a young guy that already have a sport experience and he knows how to move and stuff, probably it's gonna be pretty boring. Then you have
Mhm.
to divide the classes between beginners, intermediate, and advanced, and the warm up will be different according to the level of the person. So I'm not against like running a little bit to warm up. Of course, it should be like just enough to warm up, but there is a science behind the warm up, and there is a reason you warm up. So like when you're more advanced, like in your case, after so many years training, those warm up, they will like you don't want to do it, and I don't want to do it either. But there is other type of warm up that they're more related to the technique that you're gonna perform that day. The things that you have planned that you will be training, that those warm up are more suitable to those situations for an advanced person who can actually perform those type of moves. But it's this running and jumping jacks and push up and stuff. These are generic, maybe to build a little bit the strength in the beginner. I will say it's okay, for a short period of time, but the science behind is like you need to start to warm up first with mobility. You need to start to mobilize the joints, all the joints of your body, your shoulders, your neck, your wrist, things and fingers, things that you're going to grip later on the gi or not gi. And after you mobilize, you can do certain stretching, according to what you need from the day before, that you got like, oh, you get tense on your hamstring, so you get a little bit tense on your lower back. And then you can start to do some mobilities, like some moves after the mobility that they related directly with the technique. For example, like a front roll, back rolls. But if according to the technique that you're going to perform, of course, if you just do this without any point, it's a waste of time. And
Mhm.
if you're learning the role, if you don't know how to do a role, well, it probably is a good idea to learn the role like this with no one in the middle, because if you have to perform a role on the technique later, let's say you're going to counter an omoplata with another omoplata, right? So the guy rolled you for omoplata, you steal his arm, you put it between the legs, and you have to roll again. And if you don't know how to roll, you're probably going to hurt your neck, and the problem with hurting your neck is you have only one neck, so it's okay if you hurt your arm, have another one. So the idea for beginners and intermediate will be like doing social warm up like that, and then when you see that the guys are way more advanced, you need to move on and start to do warm up that they're more related to the technique you're gonna perform that
Mm.
day, that week. That you focus it in certain techniques. So you cannot there is not generic jiu-jitsu. There is not something that you
Yeah.
teach all the time and people will get better like this. I think as a teacher, you have to have mindfulness. You have to have awareness of what you're doing in the moment that you are doing it, and for why, what's the why? Like why we are doing this right now. Is this gonna add to my training? Or this gonna take time of my training? Actually, I could be learning something. But that's the view that the advanced people have, and that is correct. So you have to know and identify that. And if you're in a class where there's other beginners, unfortunately, you're gonna have to
Yeah.
go level down that.
I understand. You mentioned also, yeah, you mentioned beginners, advanced people. I had a conversation with one of my coaches here. When I did that transfer from MMA Spirit to a proper and only jiu-jitsu gym, I remember that there was nothing like that. There was no now it's beginner class, now it's competition class, now it's this, now it's that. There was one mat, there was no changing room. There was like 50 people, one shower. It was the best time. You had no idea. Then, of course, I mean, if it was gi, you have an idea, but it was no gi. Then there was visitors speaking no German, no idea where they're coming from, messed up ears, and it was the best time. I don't know. I don't. What do you think about this?
Well, this is like, it sounds to me like Brazil. When I was training in Brazil, it is like that. And the training is not only about like a performance on the techniques, it's also about social. So you start to relate with other people, and they come from all type of part of the society, and then you start to get to know them. So for many people the social part is very important. I think the beginners, intermediate, and advanced, it makes sense when you have a big gym, where you should like in somehow, like allow to everyone to be in the place that they need to be. Like for example, if let's say MMA Spirit, which is one of the biggest gyms, especially at that time in Germany, it was a good idea to have that, because if you have guys fighting MMA that they are in certain level, they probably should not doing the jumping jacks and running and push up. They should be doing specific warm up for the techniques, or later the technique that they're gonna perform. Like it's two professional people doing techniques, so they know what they're gonna do. So, and then intermediate, and beginners, they should be do other things that they're more suitable for them at that time. You cannot force them to do an advanced technique and they get hurt. You cannot do a suplex with a guy on the first day. You can do it on the second day, but not on the first day. So I
Yeah.
think this social part of the training, like is in Brazil, and you probably experience in this gym that you tell me, is awesome. It's awesome, and we all should have like the experience, to have at least once that experience. I think if you are looking for learning and performance, that's probably not the most direct way to become efficient in your technique. It's gonna be awesome. It's gonna have fun, and it's gonna be a good time for you after your work or after your study. And many people are looking just that in martial art, which is awesome too. You don't need to be like a 10 times world champion when you train, but
Mm.
I
Mm.
like, at least when you divide the trainings that I'm not doing that for myself. I have only my, like, the division for me is pro and no pro, like the pro do their work, for fighting, and then everybody's in. And sometimes the pro, they go in with the beginners,
Mm.
because I have a small group and I know every single one. I know if Honor has an injury in his knee, or I know is Numa
Okay.
has a pain in his shoulder. I know everything, and I'm constantly watching. And we're not more than 20 people in total.
Yeah.
I can do that because
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
constantly monitoring the situation, and I know what's going on. I know if this person, he has a struggle at work and he's a little bit not, his mind is not there today.
Yeah.
It's a different thing. But when you have to run a place that is more than 300, 400 people,
Yeah. There's no way.
Yeah.
it's not going to work like that. So
Exactly.
yeah, so I love what I do. I love just to have a small group of people that we all know each other and we support. It's awesome.
That makes sense. Yeah. You still, I think we have just a couple of minutes left, Roberto, but yeah, it was really for me important really to speak about you and no one else, but this is also part of you, right? What's going on? Are you still with Alex Rakic? You still coaching? You still training with him? How often do you see him? Maybe you can share something there real quick with us as
Yeah,
well.
no, we're not training together now, Alex. I think he's training a lot. I'm not quite sure, but I think he's training a lot in Serbia or some Croatia or some place like this. Because we separate. After his last fight against Ankalaev. Uh, this, was his decision in a way, of course, to
Okay.
separate from the team and stuff. But to be honest, for me, like at that time, even before, I was already telling to the other coaches that I was not able to continue, even if, Alex is a good friend of mine. I've been teaching him for free for 8 years. I
Yeah.
never, I
Exactly.
never charged him a class. I never, like, me. You know how I am, and I always go to the tournaments. That I love this, so I just want to help him. We put it there. We make him fight in the UFC 300. On
Mm.
all these events against Yuri Proyaska, against Ankalaev. We really give our best for him. And he did awesome. For many years. But the whole situation, like for me, was difficult to sustain. First financially, and being a father now, uh, you have to imagine that at that level you think a coach is gonna drive a Ferrari or something, and the payment that we get for being coached for 3 months is like a 3,000 euros, so
Okay.
it's
Okay.
not enough for you to have a living. So I was open my own place, and I have like things going on in my own personal life, with my kid and stuff. So I was not able to continue with him.
I understand. I had no idea. I didn't know
I
that.
was using the grip also in the way that I could help him. It was difficult for me to get close to him, and yeah, it was not the best situation. And we knew with the other coaches, with Yuri and with Babak, that we needed to have him with good high level, training partners that we could not have. He could not afford to have those guys here in Vienna, so like when he came to me to tell me that he was in his mind, to split and everything, I said, look, if we cannot have a facility, we cannot bring guys, to help you to train. It's better that you go where the guys are, like where you go to
Makes
ATT or you
sense.
go to, to train in any other place, but you need to put yourself under the line. For us, it was a beautiful project. We helped him a lot, and I think it was good for us. Like to see him growing. I met Alex when he was 24, and now I think he's 32. He's the godfather of my son, so he's a good friend.
Nice. Okay.
Regardless, the separation and everything. Of course, he has to, feed a little bit the social media, and this is interesting for social media. But I consider him a friend, and
Yeah.
all those years that we have together, they were awesome, and but I myself, I could not focus on that anymore, and we knew that we cannot do it correct. So
Okay.
me, I always try to do everything with the excellence. So if I know that I cannot help you, you know I can't do it anymore, and financially it was very difficult for me. I needed to focus on the dojo, and build the things up, and work from there. So that's where I am right now, and thanks God, a
Okay.
lot
All right.
are working very well. But I also, like I wish Alex, like all the best, in the next
Of
fight,
course.
and I always cheer, for the best for all my friends. So
Of
this
course. Yeah.
is these things on life, that happen. I
That's
remember
normal.
when I left. MMA spirit also was in the time of my life,
Yeah.
that to move on, and I went to America to train, and that's when I met Marcelo. So I have this, urgency inside of myself that I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
look for. And but I miss all the guys from MMA Spirit. They're all good friends. I talk to them from time to time, and
Yeah, yeah,
those good memories they're in my head.
exactly.
Same with guys from Brazil or in America, MMA Master where I was teaching.
Yeah.
So there are things in life, that sometimes you have to move on, and
Oh, that's normal. That's
yeah,
normal. Yeah.
yes, but very good experiences.
It's like with you now, we met like there now, friends for so long. And I met you in Sweden. It was a
Yes, I
nice
remember.
time. So there's other stories, and maybe in the second time we meet, yeah, when we can share here. That was very funny as well. No,
I
but
still have some of those, especially I'm not gonna say which one, but I have one song on my playlist, that we run away we do in the warm up, and that you're probably gonna remember of that song. And I all the time remember you. I remember that picture that we have in the Central Station in Gothenburg,
yeah,
and we were
yeah,
both laughing, and it was such a
exactly.
awesome time.
Was the best
Awesome
time.
time. Yes, yes.
Was
So
good.
yeah,
It is true. Roberto, let's wrap this up. We spent a lot of time at here now.
huge
Beautiful
pleasure for
speaking
me.
to you. Where can people find you? Is there anything you want to share? Any social media?
Yeah, we have,
Anything?
Roberto Pastuch Dojo is my main social media, is the official one, and probably on the web page is the same name, and yeah, few things are coming now with this all, instructional videos and online courses, I think, and more. We're gonna promote the book, and also, hopefully I can finish the second one that I'm struggle a little bit.
Yeah, please,
So
please do that.
all the other things, and we have this fight for my main student now. Matthias is fighting now in June, so we're like extremely focused on that. Like
Yeah,
zoom in for now, but yeah, this is the part of the social media that I'm not good at it. But slowly we will post and we'll stop.
Yeah, yeah, no,
I like to
no,
live
so
the
it's good.
moment. I like to live on the mat. I force myself to do videos and to do the stories, because I always forget, it's
Yes,
not my thing.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I see that. Don't worry. All right, Roberto, thank you so much for that. It was a pleasure talking to you, brother. And whenever you're here, please let me know, and then we meet in
Absolutely. I
person
will be
again.
gonna visit you soon. Yes, that's for sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Like it's always a pleasure to talk to you, to be with you. We had such a beautiful friendship for so many years now.
Yeah, thank you, brother.
And
Thank you.
I'm happy for you. Starting up with this podcast, project, and it's gonna be amazing. Like everything you've been doing since I know you.
Thank you so much, brother.
I'm looking forward to see you grow on this, and I'm always here to support you, and I'm gonna watch everyone. So
Thank you so much, brother. Thanks for these words. Thank you so much.
thank you.
Have a good Saturday, brother. Bye bye, Roberto. Yo, I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did. And like and subscribe, get the rush cards, or I tap you out on the next open mat. See you soon.